You ever notice that sometimes it just seems so obvious what the next best thing to do is? And other times it feels like everything on your to-do list is super important and needs your attention right now. Today, I'm going to talk to you about how do you prioritize your task when everything feels important. And that's coming up next right here on Own Your Calendar. Welcome to Own Your Calendar, the go-to resource for online business owners, coaches, and course creators who want it all: a profitable business and the time and energy for yourself and the people and things you love most. I'm your host, Stephen Box, and I'm here to help you build the systems and habits that allow you to escape the chaos and start living life on your terms. Hey there, welcome to another episode of Own Your Calendar, brought to you by Unshakable Habits. I am your host, Stephen Box. Today we're talking all about how do you prioritize tasks when everything feels important. And I want to be really honest with you guys, this one is kind of timely for me. We are relaunching the podcast as of this recording tomorrow. The podcast will already obviously be out by the time you hear this episode. But right now, I am in the middle of recording this last episode. I've got a couple other ones I still need to do a little bit of editing on. I've got a couple of PDFs I need to get put together. I'm trying to do promotional reach outs, and I'm trying to do all these things. There's this massive to-do list, and they all need to get done. But the question is, which ones are the most important? Where do I need to focus my energy and my efforts at? And I caught myself this morning, just to be completely transparent and honest with you here, getting a little overwhelmed by it, right? Kind of feeling like my brain was going in 1,000 different directions. And what I did was I did exactly what I'm going to teach you to do today. I stopped and I analyzed what exactly was going on, and I figured out what are the exact steps I need to take. What are the priorities? What needs to happen first? What's okay if it doesn't get done, if there is anything, and really looking at it from that perspective. So I'm going to share a little bit with you guys about the process I even took myself through this morning to organize this, but I'm also going to take it out a little bigger picture here and help you figure out how do you do this, because sometimes these might just be straight up work tasks like what I have today. Other times they may involve trying to find that alignment between personal time and work time. So maybe it's that workout, or maybe it's spending time with the kids or your significant other. And we need to be able to figure out, how do we prioritize these tasks and figure out what is the right order to do everything in. Now, there's a couple different ways we can look at this. One is strictly from the standpoint of task management. When it comes to task management, there's a couple of systems that I like to use. One is the PLAN method. PLAN stands for purge, leverage, automate, and nest. And what I like to do, and this is the process I went through this morning, was I do a brain dump of everything I need to get done. And I ask myself, okay, if something is not important, it doesn't really serve my goals, it's just something that would be a nice to do, I purge it. It's gone. Forget about it. Now, when I say a purge, that doesn't mean that it's necessarily gone forever, because maybe it's something I want to do at a different time when I have more time available, but it goes off to the side, right? It's not on my to-do list anymore today. The second thing I might do is leverage. And this is for things that do need to get done, but there are more efficient ways that I can do it. So for example, when it comes to creating the episode, show notes and things like that, while I do go through and do a final draft that I myself am going to do the editing on and make sure that it's my voice, I can use something like AI to at least get the first draft done, to give me something to edit down and make small adjustments to. versus having to start completely from scratch. And I've created prompts and systems and everything that have made that system better. I don't just go to ChatGPT and say, hey, give me show notes for this. There's a system that I've put in place for this that gets it probably 80% of the way there. And now I only need to do 20% of that work. And then the A in plan stands for automate. So this is for tasks that I can just plug into a system and be done with it. So for example, I had my emails already written up. They went into my autoresponder system. I had tags and every conditionals and all this other stuff already set up so that this week I didn't have to actually touch my email. Outside of if someone emailed me back, I would respond to them personally. But outside of that, everything was already set up to go out. So that was taken off my plate already this week before we even got to this morning. And then the final letter is N, which stands for nest. And this is the idea of grouping similar tasks together. So are there things that I can do all at once? So for example, I need to go through and create the custom cover art for each episode. Rather than doing one episode at a time, it's easier if I just open up my editing program and knock them all out at once. Because then I'm just literally just duplicate, make the changes, duplicate, make changes, duplicate, make the changes. And so by nesting those together into one little time block, it's a lot more efficient than me opening and closing that program a bunch of different times. So that is the plan method. Purge, leverage, automate, and nest. Now, sometimes that's not enough. Sometimes, even within the context of that, I might need to look a little bit deeper. And for this, I like the Eisenhower matrix, which is if it's important and urgent, you do it first and you handle it directly. If it's important but it's not urgent, you schedule it. If it's urgent but it's not really that important, delegate it to somebody else or use the leveraging or automation task to take care of it. And if it's not urgent or important, just eliminate it, purge it, get rid of it. You can see there's a little bit of overlap between those two, but I like to keep the two separate systems just because they give me that extra layer of clarity. Like I said, that's really great for task management, especially when it's strictly business tasks that we're focused on. But what about when we want to start looking at personal choices or when we're trying to align work and personal or family time, right? All of a sudden, it can become more difficult to make these choices. And that's where we really need to know our values, our identities, and our priorities, or as I call them, our VIPs. And one of the methods that I use with my clients to help them start to figure out those VIPs is something called the tournament of priorities. This is a concept I learned when I was completing my master coaching certification with PN. And all we're going to do is we're going to take every single task that you have, right? Every single priority, everything that you need to get done. And we're just going to brain dump it all onto a sheet of paper. And what we want to ultimately end up doing here is we want to create a NCAA March Madness style bracket for our priorities. Now, it doesn't really matter what you group together right now. Just get them down and can be done with it, right? And what you're going to do is you're going to go through that outer layer, that first set, right? So they're in pairs, and you're just going to choose between that pair. So you're going to have a task A, task B, and then a task C, task D. And it's not A versus D right now. It's A versus B, C versus D. And you're just going to choose between the two. And if you get stuck, if you have two that are really tough, maybe you put two super important things and then you put two things that maybe weren't as important together, you can swap them around, do whatever you want to do there. There's no rules here. You can do whatever you want. But what you're going to do is you're going to go through and you're going to figure out which one should win right now. Understand, this does not mean forever. It doesn't mean that this will always be the case. It's just literally right now, which one makes the most sense? Which one are you more ready, willing, and able to do? Which one's going to have the most high impact? Which one is going to get rid of the most irritating thing for you or the biggest block that you have right now? So just as an example, action A might be go shopping at the grocery store. Action B might be making a healthy lunch. You might decide that action A wins out because you have no food in your house. Or you might decide that action B wins out because you have a long meeting after lunch and you need to keep your energy up. Doesn't matter which one you pick, just pick one. All we're really trying to do right now is eliminate ideas, right? And like I said, if you get stuck on some of these, it's okay to rearrange a few pairs because sometimes the winner will be obvious, other times it will not, right? But again, we're just trying to knock out some tasks right now. And just because you knock a task out right now does not mean that task is gone forever. It's just like in the holding pile right now, right? It's revisit it later. As you go through this, each winner and each bracket here, I want you to write down why you chose it, right? Like really just stop and think about what was it about that task that made it more important for you right now. You just write that down. And we'll use this again in the future, so don't worry about what we're doing with it right now. Just write it down somewhere in terms of why you did it. And then again, take everything that didn't win out, set it to the side. You can revisit them later if you want. But for right now, they are not important for us to worry about. Next up, you're going to pair all the winners from round one into round two, the same way you would for the basketball tournament, right? So now all of a sudden, you had A and B, and then you had C and D, and A1 and D1. So now it's A versus D, and we're going to go that right. So now we keep going through this process until we get down to, let's say, 3 to 5 activities that you might have. And that's where we really want to get. Because once you get there, you now have probably a low enough number that you can start to narrow this down. And okay, here's what I'm going to work on this week. Or maybe if it's 2 or 3 things, here's what I'm going to work on today. So you don't necessarily need to go all the way until you get to a winner. But the reason why this works, first of all, is it puts you in that situation of comparing just 2 things. So it eliminates the overwhelm of trying to decide between 12 different things. Instead, you're just focused on what's more important, this or this, which frees up your ability to figure out what is actually the most important. And if you get down to a point where you can't make decisions anymore, then you're probably at a point where those tasks need to both be on. But I would just caution, don't leave too many tasks. Like I said, if you have 2 to 3 tasks tops in a day and 5 to 7 tasks or so for the week, might still be okay. But it just depends on where you start and how important they really are. And you might even be able to go back and apply those 2 frameworks I gave you earlier once you've narrowed down your task and figure out what's more important. Now, the reason why I want you to write down what you were doing and why you were doing it, why you made the choices that you did, is that you're able to now go back and look at that list and start to figure out what actually leads to your decisions. Because as weird as this might sound to say, most of us make decisions and in the moment we know what our logic is, but if we look back on it, we really don't remember, right? It made sense to us for some reason in that moment, but we don't really remember what it was. And then it's easy to get out of alignment later with things that we value. Versus if you write down why you made a choice, why that choice was important to you, it serves as a way for you to make better decisions in the future. Over time, this will just make the decision-making process more intuitive, and you won't really need to worry about doing the tournament anymore. If you got some great value out of today's episode and you would like to take the next step, I want to invite you to use the link in the show notes to book a free habit audit, and I would be happy to help you go through your day, figure out where some opportunities are for you to be more efficient and better align your business and your life goals. And if you want to maybe walk through this tournament of priorities exercise on that call, I'm also happy to do that with you. Also, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but we do have a insiders club called Own Your Calendar Plus, where you get exclusive access to episodes that are user questions. And the way that you get to submit those questions is by being a part of the Own Your Calendar Plus program. You'll be able to ask those questions and get them answered on the private subscriber-only episodes. So if you want to join the club, the link for that is also down in the show notes. Make sure that you also join us on our next episode, because I'm going to be talking about 5 signs that you're not coping with stress as well as you think. For a lot of people, they think they're handling their stress pretty well. And especially as business owners, we have a tendency to wear stress as a badge of honor. But I can tell you from firsthand experience that we're not always handling it as well as we think. And I'm going to be giving you the 5 signs that will tell you if you are in that category on our next episode. Until then, this is Stephen Box reminding you, as always, today is a great day to break free from the chaos and start living life on your terms.